Well, welcome back. I'm Zippy Duvall, and I'm host of this podcast, the Farmside Chat, and proud to have you back with me. Everybody knows that I like to travel America and talk to farmers, or go by and see them, or either just call them out on the farm, or have them on a Zoom call today, like I have my guest today. And we got a really special guest today. He's a tree farmer. He's a Christmas tree farmer down in North Carolina. Named Joe Freeman, and Joe got the pleasure of sending a Christmas tree to the White House, and we'll hear about that a little bit. First, I want to introduce him to you and let him tell us a little bit about his tree farm and how he got started in it. Joe, welcome to the Farmside Chat.
Thank you, Zippy. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
So my farm is located in northwestern North Carolina, up in the mountains of North Carolina, and we grow primarily Fraser fir Christmas trees, but we grow a little bit of everything else: white pine, um, Leland cypress, blue spruce, concolor fir, a lot of different fir. But got started in the business when I was in high school, actually helping other tree growers on retail lots in Greensboro, where I grew up down the central part of the state. Started working for them there, and eventually started working for them here in the mountains, and then branched out on my own. So uh, it's a good business. It's a lot of fun, but you have to love it, and I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure for someone that's done it for 40 years, you must have a passion for it. So, and I would think seeing people's faces when they put their tree up in their house and as they leave your farm and as you ship them off or however you're delivering them, I'm sure it puts a smile on your face and glad to see them smiling.
It does. That's my favorite part of the year is the retail season where we see families and individuals come out to either our farm or to one of our retail locations, and it's just a real joyful time of the year, and everybody's in a good mood, and so it uh, it lets you see the end result of all those years and years and years of work.
So for years, I had dairy farms, so the cows kept everything rubbed up so bad I couldn't find one on my farm. So now I don't have dairy cows, and I seem to find one every once in a while. But when I don't, I go to Jack's Creek and tree farm and cut our tree up there, and it's just a wonderful family. Tell us a little bit about your retail place and how many people you might see in during the season.
During the season, we still see quite a few folks here on the farm, and um, and we call it a choose and cut operation here in Laurel Springs. Um, like the weekend, Thanksgiving weekend's our busiest weekend, and each day, Friday, Saturday, and just about that many on Sunday, we'll see like 1,600 plus people here on the farm, which is a lot for my farm. Um, but the season starts like for our choose and cut even mid-November. Some folks want to come out before Thanksgiving, but typically Thanksgiving weekend and then the next 3 weekends will be the busiest time for us. And then
Joe, so,
go ahead.
Joe, I'm kind of old fashioned, and I like to cut that old cedar tree that I grew up with out on the farm and smells good. But I can't cut it about 10 days or 2 weeks before Christmas because if I do, it'll fall apart before I get it out the door,
That's
or it'll
right.
fall apart before Christmas. So with people buying them in November, tell us, is there a different variety if they're going to buy it early versus buying it a little later?
Yeah, that's why I'm located where I am up here in the mountains of North Carolina. We're growing Fraser fir, and it lasts unbelievably a long time once it's cut. If you care for it, but you have to treat any tree, any real tree like a fresh cut flower. You need to keep it in water and out of the sun and wind. But a Fraser fir will last 2 to 3 months after it's cut. Um, and we're doing some studies now, and we may have some selections of Fraser fir that will last even longer than that. But I grew up with that same cedar tree. Down in the central
Yeah.
part of North Carolina, that was the Christmas tree.
Yeah, it does smell good if you can take advantage of that.
It does. It does.
So a Christmas tree, you don't plant it now and cut it next year. How long does it take you to grow a tree? The average size that a family would come out and
Yeah,
cut.
the most popular size has always been 7 foot and always will be. 7 foot tree, you're going to be looking at minimum of 12 years, 12 to
Wow.
14 years. So they're 4 years old when we take them to the field in a seedling, because most of us are harvesting our own seed and growing trees from seed. So 4 years at a minimum there, and then about a foot a year. Uh, so if you're looking at a 7 foot tree, you might be able to get that in 11 years, but from seed. If you're talking about just transplants going to the field, once they're planted in the field, 8 to 10 years. We have so many different, if you have a late freeze that can damage the new growth, it'll take you another year to grow out of that. If you've got a deer problem browsing, it'll take you a year or two to get out of that. So there's a lot of like any farming, there's some challenges there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Joe, I'm in the cattle business, and I sell all my cows at one time by the truckload, and I get this bulk of gross amount of money. And then I have to make that gross amount of money last a whole year with fertilizer, tractors, and trucks, and employees, and all insurance, and all the things that goes along with it. Well, they come to your farm, and they see you taking that money in, but when Christmas is over with, your season's not over. I know that Christmas Tree Farm is probably like farm or any other farm, and it's year round. Tell us a little bit about some of the major things that you have to have inputs in for your trees and some of the things you do throughout the year.
A lot of the same things that you mentioned. Fertilizer, we've seen massive increases like anybody that's using fertilizer. It costs up the vehicles, the tractors, the labor. Most of our work is done manually because of our terrain. We're steep. We can't get on our fields with tractors, and so we fertilize by hand. We control weeds by hand. So a lot of hand labor. So yes, and with a Christmas tree operation, looking at that, I'm on a 10-year rotation. So if I plant a tree now, it's going to be out in the field. It's going to be good 10 years before I clear cut that field and replant. So that chunk of money that we get in at Christmas, it's got to last us till the next Christmas. But when you really look at it, those first 10 years you're starting out are some lean years.
Yeah. So, do you have to rotational crop? So when you cut that tree off, do you have to put something back on that land, or can you go back with trees? Because a lot of crops you have to change crops.
We have some root fungus challenge in Phytophthora cinnamoni that's a problem for us, but you really can't rotate out of it. We have to go with a different species or a different rootstock or something like that. But no, as far as letting the ground rest, like in some row crops and things, really don't have to do that. We do a lot of soil sampling and try to get that field just as good a shape as it can be while we're growing the tree, and then so it's ready to plant another crop right back in it.
Well, other than children, I don't know of anything else that I could make an investment in. I didn't get nothing back for 10 years. And I'm not sure I can get anything back out of them except a little love and a kiss on the cheek every once in a while and cuddling
Right.
in your lap. But, 10-year long investment, that's, most businesses don't have to make that long of investment and be vulnerable to the weather and elements that you do.
Yeah, we it's definitely so I've been here in the mountains 35 years now growing trees, and you can really see a temperature difference, and that has had some effect on our trees. The Fraser fir that we grow is native of these North Carolina mountains. They're only found on 6 mountaintops naturally here in North Carolina and Virginia, um, and they like that cold weather. So
So,
yeah,
so how cold does it get there?
it gets pretty cold. We'll be down right now though. Usually our coldest weather is in February now.
Okay.
Um, we will occasionally see some snow in November, but so we're in 1st of October, and this year we are fortunate. We've already had a couple of frosts, so we've had some temperatures down in the low 30s already. Looking for some freezing temperatures next week. That's real important for our Christmas trees. Um, there's actually a chemical reaction in the needles that sets those needles, those
Hmm.
cool nights. And what happens once those needles are set, you cut that tree, that needle will break in half before it'll pull off of that of the stem where it's attached. So that's a good thing because everybody wants their needles to stay on their Christmas trees.
Yeah. So weather, challenges with the input costs, uh, maybe some soil diseases. What other challenges do you have?
Uh, those are definitely the main ones. The fact that it's such a long-term investment, um, and that you have to plan very far in advance, and you can't really determine what the market may be 8 years out. You just have to do the best you can with that. But labor is always a challenge. Rising input costs, staying ahead of that. Um, and this, like you mentioned, that fungus disease. But
So I happened to be in a Christmas tree farm in Maine, I think it was, and they were telling me that transportation was a huge issue this year. How has it affected you, and will it affect everyone's ability to get a Christmas tree in their house?
I think there'll be plenty of trees available. Plenty of trees. We grow so many trees here in North Carolina. Um, there'll be lots of trees available. Transportation. I, I'm beginning to rethink. I've had just lots and lots of trucking companies calling me here recently wanting to haul Christmas trees. So I think it's beginning to turn a little bit. Um, with all the input costs, I think folks are going to, obviously, trees are going to be up a little bit. They're going to be cost a little bit more because we all want to stay in business. So we got to pay that fertilizer bill.
Right.
But as far as a supply, there's plenty of Christmas trees available.
So after thinking about it, I think it was New Hampshire I was in instead of Maine that I saw
Okay.
that Christmas tree
Okay.
farm. But
Yeah.
I think he sold some trees out on the West Coast and had decided to just leave that market alone because it was such a challenge getting these trees out. Uh, so I'm glad to hear that it's loosening up some, and hopefully that won't be a huge factor. For those that are listening, and Joe, you may not know this, but a lot of my listeners are not farmers. They're actually people that live around urban parts of the country and just interested in farmers and agriculture story. And
Good.
a lot of people don't really understand how difficult transportation is, not just for delivering your what you grow out to the market, but also transportation, getting stuff in, fertilizer and chemicals and stuff that we need to be able to grow that crop, and just difficult sometimes. So, and it has been a bigger challenge this year than normal.
Yeah.
So,
The
uh,
cost is up for sure.
yeah, it sure is. About 300% on my farm,
Wow.
fertilizer cost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So
fertilizer. Yeah.
I said at the top of the show that you had the great pleasure of sending a Christmas tree to the White House. I know that had to be a proud moment for you and your farm and your family. Share a little bit about the excitement around that. What administration was it? Tell us that story. I'm sure you got a great story about that.
It was a lot of fun. It was a great honor. So the background on it, to qualify for that honor, you have to enter first the state Christmas tree contest in your state association, and then the national contest in the National Christmas Tree Association. And if you're selected the grand champion grower for that year, then you get the honor of presenting the official White House Christmas tree, the Blue Room Christmas tree, to the First Lady, and she accepts it on behalf of the nation. And so we had the privilege of making that presentation to Mrs. Bush. George Bush was in office, and so Laura Bush accepted the tree. It was a great honor. It was a big production here on the farm. Both the tree selection, where the White House had a committee to come down and select the tree, and it was special because it was one of only two trees of the first trees that I planted here in the
Wow.
mountains. I only had two left from to choose from,
Wow.
and they were big trees. Now they were large. They want an 18.5 foot Christmas tree. Where they
Wow.
put it in the Blue Room, the power source comes out of where the chandelier comes out of the ceiling. They take the chandelier down and run the cord down there, and so they measure that tree very precisely for that. But we made some really good friends there and made many trips to the White House. Mrs. Bush invited us back for reception. It was very nice. Big honor, lots of fun. The tree cutting here on the farm was a big presentation. We did a large lunch for everybody that came, and a lot of fun, a lot of good memories.
So is that tree 6, 8 inches on the stump or what?
It was more like right where I cut it. And that year, I broke my thumb that year early in the season, and that was the only tree I cut that year. So, but it was huge at the base of that tree. I've still got the trunk. The Admiral Rashawn was the chief usher. Admiral Stephen Rashawn was chief usher at the White House at that time, and he uh, he let me bring that trunk back with me as a memento, and so it's a good 18 inches in diameter.
Wow.
They cut 2 foot off of the bottom of that tree. They wanted as much as they told me to bring as much as you can, and we'll measure it when it's here. And so I've got a pretty good sized stump, to
Yeah. Yeah.
there. But
Well,
but it's
I know they had to be exciting. I've been to the White House, not to see your tree because I didn't go during the Bush administration, but I've been through two different administrations and saw the trees, and I really never thought about asking where they come from. So you're going to make me ask next time I go.
ask.
To-
Uh, it's a for a Christmas tree grower, it's like winning the Super Bowl and the World Series wrapped up together in one. So
I'm sure it is.
it's a big deal.
So, so was it a Fraser fir?
It was. It was.
Okay.
Um,
So I told you I like that old cedar. So if you're gonna put one in your house, is it gonna be a Fraser fir or something else?
it's going to be a Fraser.
Okay.
Typically, we always put in a smaller Fraser uh, um, because those smaller trees, I like them.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fraser fir. But really the message, I guess, that I would say is any real tree. I think plastic has its place in this world, but not as a Christmas tree. Not for me.
No, not for me either. I just don't think it'd feel like Christmas, and I'm sure it's not gonna smell like it. So.
No, no, no.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me today. And if there's someone out there listening that wants a award-winning tree from your farm, where do they go find you?
Well, we're located here, like I said, in Laurel Springs, North Carolina. Probably the best thing to go would be to go to our website, mistletoemeadows.com, and get all the information. But we've got locations in Asheboro, North Carolina, Garner, North Carolina, and Pinehurst, North Carolina. And then the main farm where we grow all the trees is Laurel Springs, and we have a lot of fun up here. We do hay rides, and Santa Claus comes every year. I'm tight with Santa Claus now. Me and I are real tight.
So have you been good this year that you might come back?
I've been good. I've been real good.
Well, before we leave, I want to give you a chance to tell us what your favorite part of your farm and your job is, and anything else you'd like to share with people out there.
Well, definitely, there's no question about that. My favorite part of all this hard work, all these years of growing these trees, is seeing the families come out to the farm, seeing the young kids get so excited. And on the retail lots, they get so excited because where we're standing our trees up on the retail lot, it's like a little forest. And those kids will run through there and they'll get on the sleighs and play. And so seeing those families get to spend time together in a joyful experience, that's what it's all about.
Well, the holiday season is about family, and uh, I'm not sure when this episode will run, but I'm sure it'll be close to the holidays, and we just hope that everyone out there has a wonderful holiday season, takes time to thank God for all the wonderful things around Thanksgiving, and then absolutely stop for a moment and think about what the season is about around Christmas. It is about our Savior. So we just thank you, Joe, for all your hard work and all the smiles and pleasure you put in people's lives, and the symbol that stands in our homes every Christmas to realize that the real present is the one that God gave us. So thank you for joining me. We hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season, and we just say God bless you to all of you.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Farmside Chat. Please be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, take a minute to rate and review the podcast. This helps us continue to bring you farm fresh content that everyone can enjoy. Until next time, thank you and God bless you.